Good evening and welcome to the Sound Off program. My name is Linda Kirker. I host the show, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it when you tune in. And I encourage you, as I always do, to call in once we get started and having our conversation. I encourage you to call in with a question or make a comment. You're more than welcome to do that. The phone number will be on the screen, and that way you can have access to it. There it is. I just wanted to start, before I introduce my guest, I want to start with something that I think is really important, and that is to encourage you to please pay attention to what is happening in our state. And we have a new legislative session coming up. January 9th is the start of the session in Montpelier. And I want to encourage you not only to pay attention to what is happening, what bills are being proposed, and to find out from your own political party, or calling, where would you call, the State House maybe? Probably not. Find out who the legislators and senators are from your county or other counties, and write down the phone number. And you can always call the Sergeant-at-Arms office at the State House and leave a message for your senator or House member. You just call the number, which I'm going to give you, and then identify yourself and let them know who it is, which legislator or senator you want to leave a message for. And it works. And it's important that you take that initiative and let these folks know they're supposed to represent you and me. They're elected to represent the people. And if they don't know what the people want or what the people think, then they're just going to go about doing what they wish to do. And it's important that we speak up. So the number for the Sergeant-at-Arms office is 828-2228. I have another number here, and be honest with you, I can't remember if you can reach the State House with this one, but I believe you can. 1-800-322-5616. And if you didn't get the numbers, you can call and ask, and I'll repeat them for you. Now, with that, I would like to introduce my guest, who has been on the show a number of times through the years. I think it's 12 years now I've been doing this program. And his name is Rob Roper.
Hey, Linda. Good to see you.
Welcome back. Yes.
Oh, my gosh. Has it been 12 years?
Yes. Yes, it has.
I guess it has. I got my hair cut today and saw all the gray on the thing, you know.
Oh, boy,
like,
you don't know what gray is. Yeah, it's been a long time, but it's been a lot of work doing my homework. But it also keeps me informed, because I have to, be prepared for my show with questions and so forth, do my homework. And it's great to have you and a lot of other fine people come on the program and interact with the public.
Well, it's a great show and a great venue. You've been a great host.
Well, thank you. I try.
It's always fun to come up here and do a show with you.
It's fun, and thanks for coming all the way from Stowe. I appreciate that. And how many years have you been the the president of Ethan Allen Institute?
This is my sixth year doing it. So starting on the 6th. So 5 full, and we're starting on the 6th here.
Oh, that's great, because it's a great organization.
Well, thanks.
Why don't you tell folks, just for openers, a little bit about what Ethan Allen Institute is?
Yeah, well, the Ethan Allen Institute is, we're basically a think tank, is the best way to describe it. We've been around since, for 25 years. Last year we celebrated our 25th anniversary. Mm-hmm. We were founded by John McClowry. John ran for president for governor against Howard Dean in 1993, and he put together this great campaign apparatus and met a lot of like-minded people throughout the state. And when he was finished, he said, "Yeah, God, it would really be a shame to see all these great people just sort of scattered to to the wind. So let's see if we can do something to keep everybody together and working together and keeping the ideals that we fought for in the campaign alive. And that is what the Ethan Allen Institute was born out of. And
He's a smart man.
Oh, John's terrific, and he's still very active with the Institute. He's the vice president.
Good, good.
He sort of stepped back, but more of a partnership than a boss vice president relationship.
Sure.
That's for sure.
Well, excuse me, John worked also in Washington D.C.
He did. John was a policy advisor to Ronald Reagan. He moved to Vermont in I think it's 1964. Built with a backpack and an axe on his back, and he built a log cabin up in the
Did he really?
In the mountains of Kirby, Vermont, and. He served in the Vermont House. He served in the Vermont Senate. He went to work for Ronald Reagan. Came back, a policy advisor to Governor Snelling, I believe, either formally or informally. I think informally, and then founded the Ethan Allen Institute after his run for governor. And he's just a brilliant mind, and he's a lot of fun to work with, and encyclopedic knowledge of
I know
of many things, particularly Vermont politics, but also federal politics and American history and world history.
He's co-author of at least one book, which I have. And when my husband was a political appointee under Reagan and Bush, I think they knew one another down in Washington. Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very neat. Yeah, no, he co-wrote a book with Frank Bryan, the UVM. Professor on town meeting day, the importance of. Forget the title off the top of my head. If I, but it is a terrific book.
They have a name for these places. Oh, what is that called? It's in the book. I'll have to look that up.
But so what we do, just to get back to the question,
Yes.
What is the Ethan Allen Institute? We fight for liberty. Basically, in the state, it's our mission is to make sure that people understand what it takes to maintain the fundamentals of a free society. So it's individual liberty, private property, lower taxes, lower regulation, allowing people to basically live their lives as consenting adults in all transactions. We hear a lot about with the Me Too generation, the importance of consent. And that's actually written into our founding documents. Consent. The consent of the governed. Government derives its power from the consent of the governed. So those relationships, imagine, when all transactions are based on mutual consent. If I want your pen, you have to consent to give it to me because I give you something of equal value in return. Or you give it something to me. So there's a morality to this that I think it's interesting to explore and remind people of, because I think sometimes people forget about the morality that's behind free market capitalism and our philosophy of government.
Well, I believe that our young people today are being taught that capitalism is not a good thing.
Yeah, they are.
And God forbid that we should lose capitalism, which is private enterprise, where people are empowered to establish a business, and without government interference, hopefully. But the founders, as you know, and I'm assuming that the viewers know, the founders wanted to limit government and empower the people and the states. And we see so much government control today, and that's why I encourage you viewers to call up the State House and even call up your senators in Washington and your Peter Welch, your House member, and let them know what you want and what you don't want.
Well, it's funny that we're talking about this. It's sort of off the topics of what we wanted to talk about.
I know.
Well, we said we wanted to talk about. But when I started, one of the things we do is we host a radio show on WDEV that airs weekdays 11 to noon. And it's hosted by Bill Sayre, who's another member of our family at Ethan Allen Institute, another brilliant guy. He studied economics under Milton Friedman. And but we have the 11 to noon show, and at 1 o'clock there's a progressive show that comes on, and I rarely get a chance. I'm usually working then, so I rarely get a chance to listen to the progressive show. But I was in the car today, and I tuned in, and they had this guy from the Democratic Socialist Party. I think he was based out of Connecticut, talking to the host of the show about what they want to do. And it really is. It's not. It's they want to break down the Constitution. And he said this flagrantly.
Openly said that?
Openly said, we got to basically burn the Constitution.
That is...
And he quoted somebody that was his quote. He didn't say, I want to burn the Constitution, but he quoted somebody who said that, we need to burn the Constitution. And they do. They want to get rid of the Senate as a deliberative body. He said he wants to turn our Senate into basically a figurehead position like the House of Lords in London. So you don't have a balance. They want to get rid of the checks and balances. They were complaining about how hard it is to amend the Constitution.
That's good.
And which is a good thing. It's a good thing that it's hard, because there's supposed to be broad consensus in this country before you do anything. And that's what they can't stand. They don't like the fact that everybody has a say. There's an equality of political power. When you spread political power out amongst the people, there's equality of political power.
Absolutely.
But that also means that it's very hard to do anything. Because if you have the same amount of political power that I have, that the person over there has, that everybody throughout the country has, everybody has to come together and agree before you take any action.
Well,
and if you love their idea, they want centralized power with a few people making the decisions and everybody else is sheep.
Yes, I get it.
And Linda, but I think a lot of people have forgotten that. They don't understand. They're saying, our founding fathers and our Constitution is not very democratic, and it's not. We're a constitutional republic. We're a representative republic, because basically what a pure democracy is mob rule.
Absolutely.
And it's not moral.
Whims of the people.
That's what, and our Constitution was set up with all these checks and balances to protect minority rights and to protect the rights of the individual.
Mm-hmm.
If in a pure democracy, if 51% of the people say we want to kill the other 49% of the people and take all their stuff, let's vote, then that's okay. But
in a democracy,
in a pure democracy, and that's what they want. That's what they want. They want a more pure democracy. But our Constitution says that we're all created equal
in the eyes of God and under the law.
And under the law, with inalienable rights of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and then they're enumerated further in the Bill of Rights, the 10 amendments, first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And the idea there is, no matter what everybody else in the country thinks, wants, or desires, or would even benefit from, if that's in conflict with your rights as an individual, to your life, to your liberty, to your property, then they can't take it away. And that's what government is there to put in place to protect. And
government's now in the way.
We're forgetting that. Our children are not being taught that. And a lot of people are now see that, like this guy on the radio I was listening to today, think that's a bad thing. And that's what we're there at the Ethan Allen Institute, to remind people of these very important principles that our country was founded on and why.
Well, the people who came to this country, let's say from England, King George III was a tyrant. They were highly taxed. They were ruled without any voice. And they couldn't practice their religion. There was just one church, the Church of England, and they had it up to here. And they came from a place where they felt that they didn't have rights and freedoms. And so when they came here, it was so critically important for them to ensure that whatever they created for a government for the people, of, by, and for the people, that they made sure that we couldn't have a dictator or a form of government where, a small few could rule the roost.
Yeah.
And so, but they also knew that if the people were not informed and involved, and if they didn't elect people of honor, then this democratic constitutional republic would not last. And I think we're on a teetering point here.
No, I think we are too.
And if we don't teach our children what the founding principles of this country are and why, then they're the future of the country, and it's just not going to last, and we're not going to have those rights and freedoms. And anyway, I agree 100% with what you just said. And folks, I just implore you to make sure that you read the Constitution, understand it, stand up for the founding principles of this country, or your children and grandchildren will not have the freedoms and rights that we have known. They're being challenged. And our Constitution is a threat to the people who want ultimate power in this country.
Absolutely. And I've got to see if I can find a podcast of this radio show, because I have to share it with people, because
Yes.
it was really eye-opening. You sort of, think that, these are conspiracy theorists saying, they want to abolish the Constitution, and they want to do all these crazy things. But and they'll actually come out and say it, which is, I think, remarkable.
Socialism.
And they feel like they can at this point, which is a scary step that they've taken.
Can you speak briefly to socialism? I mean, that's what Bernie Sanders is all about. And it's not freedom for the people.
No, it's not nice. It's not nice at all. And what I said about consent, why I think that's so important. In a free market economy, under capitalism, under our Constitution, which makes consent such an important virtue to have. As I said, all transactions take place when people agree. And when people agree to a transaction, both sides benefit from that transaction. Everybody benefits.
They compromise.
But the problem
or
with
whatever.
socialism, or any collectivist government, be it communism, socialism, and having an emperor, having a king, that kind of feudal society, wherever the power is concentrated in one place and then gets disseminated elsewhere through a redistributive process, consent is thrown away, and it's replaced by force.
Consent of the people.
Yeah. It's by force. So under a socialist thing is, well, we both have pens, but let's say you have 2 pens and I don't want a pen. Well, maybe I would have to give you my glass of water to get a pen. That's a consensual transaction that we make. But if I say, I'm just going to take your pen and give it to me, and the government is going to be an element of force that takes it away, well, I benefit from getting the pen, but you don't.
Yeah.
And you didn't consent to giving me that pen. So I may benefit, but you don't, and that's not fair. That's
Right.
fundamentally not fair. You don't benefit. And if you are the person who makes the pens, well, it takes away your incentive to make them. Because if somebody's just going to come in and take it away from you, then what's the incentive to create it in the first place? And that's where you get this downward spiral of that all collectivism and socialism and redistributive forms of government bring us.
It's about, socialism is about government control. And like in Europe, I have family in Norway, and I was reading about Denmark. The people there, oh yeah, you get free health care, but the government takes 70% of whatever you earn.
Yeah, it's about 66%.
Yeah, so they can't afford to buy a vehicle. What kind of...
There's I think it's Denmark that has, it's a 100% tax on a car. So if in the United States, if you're getting a starter car, you can probably go out there and find something for under $10,000, a little thing. Well, okay, let's say you get a $10,000 car. Then you pay $10,000 tax on that.
Oh.
And you pay $7 a gallon gasoline to drive it in these socialist paradises that they talk about. And that's another thing about, our Bernie Sanders and the socialists here, the Democratic socialists here in Vermont today they want people to think that everything's going to be for free, but nothing's going to be taken from them.
Nothing's free.
In these countries where we need to be more like these Nordic countries like Denmark, everybody gets the free stuff, but everybody pays big time for it. As I said, it's 66% taxes. So if you want to, and it's funny, because I'll go around and I'll talk to college students occasionally in my job. I get into the classroom and I always ask them, okay, you guys are about to enter the workforce and you're going to start earning paychecks. How much is it going to be fair for the government to take out of your paycheck in taxes once you start earning? How many people think that you should be allowed to keep at least 90% of what you earn? And maybe a few hands go up when I say 90%. When I say 80%, the bulk of the hands go up. When I say 70%, maybe there's one holdout. But when you get beyond 70%, nobody is interested. And really, if you get beyond, the government taking more than 20%, not many people are interested in that.
That's reality.
But the reality is, in this country, once you pay your income taxes, once you pay your sales taxes, once you pay, all these other little taxes that they get here and there from you, you're paying more than that already. And nobody, I think, wants to go to a system where they're paying 66% of everything they earn to the government in exchange for having the government decide how they get health care, how they get housing, how they get transportation.
Right.
And
I don't know who said this, Rob, but the statement was something like this. The government cannot provide anything for you that it hasn't taken from someone else.
Yep. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's what the collectivist societies do. They take from somebody else by force to give to somebody else. Getting back to the morality of free market capitalism is whenever there's a transaction in a free market, both sides benefit. And that's, because if I want to trade my pen for your glass of water, you value the pen more than you value your glass of water. And I value your glass of water more than I value your pen, this pen. That's why we make the transition. We both benefit from that transition. But here's another important part of the morality of free markets is if I need your glass of water because I'm really thirsty, I need to understand you as a person to find something of value that you value more than that glass of water that I value less, that I can give you. So we have to know each other. We have to understand one another. Okay. And that's a really important part of civility and community. But in a redistributive society, if I want your water, I'm not going to give you anything. I'm going to get the government to be the hammer to take it away from you and give it to me. That I don't have to get to know you. And you're going to resent me for doing it.
So it's unhealthy.
I am going to probably dehumanize you, because if I humanized you in this situation, then I would feel like a jerk because I stole your water. So in order to justify me getting the water from you for nothing, I have to say, well, Linda's a bad person. Yeah. Linda, she got that water unjustly. I should be able to take that water. And that's what happens now. That's what we're devolving into. That's why you see these riots in the streets.
Why? Yeah, but I believe those are being financially supported by the likes of George Soros and others.
That may very well be the case, and I don't deny that. But the message is that these people, you are justified in going out into the streets and being violent because those people who we want to take stuff from are bad.
And who tells them that those people are bad?
Well,
the store owners who now have a big open window that's crashed all up by these people who have no respect for someone who has a business and is trying to eke out a living and pay taxes and so forth. We need to get back to respect, responsibility. Here in this country, you have rights, you have opportunities to be the best you can be and to be as productive as you can be. Instead of being angry at being angry at you because you built up an empire and you have a lot of money and your children can do this or whatever, and here I am, what am I doing? I'm smoking pot and whatever, and I'm saying, wait a minute, you have this wonderful opportunity to create a good life for yourself, and what are you doing with it? Getting angry at somebody who's worked their fanny off for their whole life? There's something very, very innately wrong with what is being propagated, what people are being encouraged to do, especially our youth. And I don't know how we're going to do it, Rob, but I want to get rid of the National Department of Education, and I hope that's going to happen. And Common Core is a disaster. The likes of Bill Gates pouring $350 million into forcing or encouraging states to take money to incorporate Common Core.
And he now admits it's a failure.
Yeah, I know.
Oops.
Yeah. Oops. Meanwhile, it's continuing, and all these children are being taught you don't even get an A or a B or a C grade anymore. So what are you working? How can you assess how well you're doing and feel good about it? God forbid one student should excel and the others are all going to cry. No, everybody has opportunity, and we can't all do the same things. But that's okay. That's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. But we are doing a great disservice to our young people.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And
well,
I want to bring up one more aspect of this, since we've gone off on this
tangent.
But I think it's an interesting tangent, and it's a really important one. Is democracy? We're talking about how in a pure democracy that's governed by votes, it's basically mob rule. But if you want to see democratic action, again, you look to the free market. The free market is much more democratic in that sense, is that everybody gets to vote with their wallets and their feet. So you don't have...
Explain
this. Big decision between Betamax and VHS. I'm dating myself, but you remember that, back when they had VHS, first time you could record television shows, and the big things. It was which brand, which
company?
Not company, platform. I guess platform is going to be the one that everybody uses. Is it the Betamax or is it the VHS? And if this were government, the government would have picked one or the other.
Yep.
And they said, okay, it's going to be the Betamax. But in the free market, everybody got to choose with their wallet and their feet, and say, okay, I'm going to buy the Betamax, or I'm going to buy the VHS system. And that was that's a truly democratic decision. Mm-hmm. And it plays out through the market. The people get to decide it. And you can also then change your mind, because, wait a minute, VHS won that battle. We all had VHS, but then DVDs came around. And you say, oh, if this were government, well, it's VHS, and it's going to be VHS in perpetuity. You're never going to get anything different, because the government's made the decision, and there's no incentive for them to change their mind. But okay, then something else comes along, and it's DVD, and then streaming came along, and so all these different things people get to choose, and sometimes it's an either or, like who's going to win out, Betamax or VHS. But oftentimes, like, look at cell phones. You may have an iPhone, you may have a Samsung phone, you may have a Google phone, there are all these different brands out there, and not one of them doesn't win.
No,
they're choices for everybody, but we get to make that's a democratic decision. That's people deciding for themselves, consensually. I'll bring the word back in again. I consent to pay Apple because I want an iPhone, and somebody else may pay Google consensually because they want to have a Google phone. And the same thing goes for so many transactions. But let's let people decide on their own what they want.
It's called freedom.
Yeah, what businesses they want to succeed and what businesses they want to let fail.
Well, what products meet their needs and their interests? You have the freedom to choose.
Which is the title of a great book by Milton Friedman.
That's right.
Which everybody should read.
Freedom to choose. In my spare time, I have so many books to read. Freedom to choose. Okay. So we're at a place, we're at on the edge of a cliff right now in this country, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm very, very concerned about the lack of respect for even the people in politics at the national level. When some of the comments that are made are so childish, and I don't know how these people even get elected, to tell you the truth.
Well, here's my answer to that. Why do we give them power? If they're childish...
Because they're selling a bill of goods.
If they can't get along with each other, if they're not successful in getting anything done, why do we give them power to do things?
That's a great question.
Trillions of dollars to do things that they can't fix and are incapable of fixing. You think about it. This is a group, was it 435 congressmen or House members and 100 senators. Mm-hmm. Who, most of them are probably lawyers. there's certainly very few of them who have any knowledge of the healthcare business. They have very little knowledge of any, transportation or anything. Yet we go to this group, disparate interests, political interests that have nothing to do with the sustainability or viability of the product they're selling.
Where does their money come from?
Where does their money come from? And then it goes through a committee process. It has to go through the checks and balances of government. What makes us think that this is going to work? Yeah. It wasn't designed to work. It wasn't designed. Those problems were supposed to be left to the people.
That's right.
And the reason that it doesn't work is because we're trying to push this very enormous round peg through a very small square hole, and then we're upset at the other end when it's expensive and doesn't work.
Government needs to get its nose out of a lot of the things that it's into and let the states, for education, the federal government has no role, according to the U.S. Constitution, no role in running education.
And even the states don't have a very big role. It's usually left up to local communities.
Right. But now we have, Common Core. Anyway, time is moving along.
It is.
But this is important.
So from a philosophical standpoint, this is what the Ethan Allen Institute focuses on, these kind of philosophical points. And then we can break them down and apply them to individual issues. And I suppose we can do that in the second half of the show. If people, just let me give out if you're interested in learning more about the Ethan Allen Institute, go to ethanallen.org on the web, and that's our website. And you can see the issues. We do a lot of services that try to help keep our politicians give you the tools to keep them accountable for what they do. We put out these things called roll call profiles, which is basically a profile of every single legislator. In fact, the next couple of weeks before January starts, I got a whole bunch of new legislators I have to create profile pages for.
Yes,
so the new folks who just got elected aren't in there yet, but it's it's got a picture of them. It tells you the towns that
how to contact them.
The towns, it tells you how to contact them directly through their telephone number, through their email address. We also go through, and if they have a Facebook page, we give a link to their Facebook page.
Wow.
If they have a Twitter account, we give them a link to their Twitter account, all that sort of stuff. And then once they start compiling a voting record, we'll show you like the 10 or 12 key votes of that legislative session, how
where
they voted,
have a recorded vote.
How they have a recorded vote, but also with a short explanation of what that vote is, which is not something that they do on the legislative sites. It's it's very vague.
It's really nice that you do.
Very hard to figure out. And we have the links to take you to the original legislation, so you can read that for yourself. And
it's a very informative site.
It is, and we put a lot of work into it, so I hope people will take advantage of it.
EthanAllen.org, folks, if you want to know what's going on in Montpelier.
But John and I, we put out op-eds. John puts out 2 a month. I put out 1 a month. Or David Fleming, who also works with us, puts out 1 a month.
I had him on the show a while back.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And you can read those on the website as well. We have a blog where we talk about daily issues in a shorter, less formal tone and manner.
It's a great resource, folks.
And as I said, we have the radio show 11 to noon. If you miss it, if you're not in the...
I can't hear it here.
If you can't hear it, you can stream it. You can stream it live.
Yes, I've done that.
And and also, if you're not around during the 11 to noon hour, if you go on the website, you can find the podcasts. We put them up after, usually takes us about a week to get them up. So we're about a week behind from what it is, but you can...
It's WDEV. Oh, we have a caller. Caller, welcome to the show. What's on your mind tonight?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm calling because, first of all, I'm enjoying the show immensely.
Thank you.
Rob Roper has done a phenomenal job at Ethan Allen, and I want to encourage everyone to go to the website. I can speak from experience in terms of looking up the voting record of the various House members and Senate members on roll call votes. There's a lot of information that's given, and I heard Rob say how there's a little synopsis of each bill, and it's easy. It's very, very concise. I don't even think most of those are like a paragraph long, but the information is very specific. And you can, by alphabetical order, as you scroll, you can find your representative and your senator, and it's truly worthwhile. So I'm totally in favor of everyone, looking it up. And kudos to you, Rob. You've been doing a phenomenal job. You and everyone else at Ethan Allen, really and truly. It's been the information that's coming forth is very helpful to legislators. And so I want to thank you for that. The other thing, Linda, you mentioned this Sergeant at Arms telephone number.
Yes, did I give the wrong one?
No, not exactly. The number
it's
that
5616.
viewers should call is 828-2228. The other number you gave, which I can't remember off the top of my head right now, actually I believe is the emergency number. Both of those numbers are actually posted on a sign in the parking lot of the State House. One is the 2228 number is specifically the Sergeant at Arms. The other number, I believe, is for emergency, for when the State House is closed and there's no one, the Sergeant at Arms office is closed. If you need to reach someone or a service for an emergency, I believe that's the other number.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging how important Ethan Allen Institute is and what a great resource it is, not only for the public to become informed, but also for the legislators.
Yes, it's very helpful to the legislators. And I hope, Rob, that you come back on Linda's show.
Oh, I'll come on as often as she'll have me.
Oh, that's wonderful, especially when we get into the next session, because there's going to be a lot of hot and heavy. The itinerary is going to be it's going to be very hot and heavy.
That's the
way I can describe it.
We're going to get into some of that in the next few minutes. But thank you for all you do, Mariana Gamache, one of our state legislators from Franklin County, representing Swanton and Sheldon. And thank you for the work you do down in Montpelier, too, okay?
Well, you're quite welcome, and I want to thank you for all you do, because you are the one that is bringing information through your show and through your interest and through your knowledge that you are educating the public out there. Because everybody has busy lives. Nobody has time to do a whole lot of stuff, and it's difficult. It really is. So when you can get accurate information that's presented in a forum that makes sense and you can learn from this, it's extraordinarily helpful. We, unfortunately, because of our educational system, and I'm not going to say it's only Vermont, I'm sure that it's in other states as well, we have raised a number, we have educated, or I should say indoctrinated, a number of generations, at least 2 generations, of now adults who have been indoctrinated with a philosophy that is not capitalistic in base at all. It is a socialist philosophy, and it's been going on for years. And so it's difficult for these people, because they've been exposed for so long from early grade school on right up through high school and then into college. It's hard for a lot of them to take a different look or to consider something that is outside of that particular prism.
True.
And I think that is the result of, that is why we are seeing the results that we are seeing.
Well,
and it's very sad,
I
because
think
they're not learning the Constitution in school.
Well, that's what we're all about, and hopefully we'll have another Liberty Camp this summer for
that would be wonderful.
7th and 8th graders. Rob's a great presenter. The students in Rutland wanted to know when they could come back. They loved it so much.
Well, we should explain to the audience what Liberty Camp is.
Go ahead.
And I will hang up.
Okay,
And
thank you
both.
Thank you for the
you,
I
Mariana.
will continue to listen.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
But that's another thing that the Ethan Allen Institute does is the last 2 years we've put on a Liberty Camp over the summer for kids. Just short, it was 3 mornings, 1 week. 2 years ago we did it here in St. Albans, and last year we did it down in Rutland. And we've had great groups of kids, basically about middle school aged.
Yeah.
is what we're looking for. And we spend one day talking about the founding of the continent, not necessarily the country, with the Pilgrims coming in and the values that they brought with them when they came. And the second day we devote to talking about the Declaration of Independence and the principles that are embodied in that and that document.
Excellent.
And then the third day we talk about the Constitution with a focus on the Bill of Rights. And you know, so how does you take the principles laid out in the Declaration of Independence, where they say, you know, the purpose of government is to secure these rights. Well, okay, then the next they form the government to secure those rights, and we see how those two things fit together. And it's a lot of fun. And you know, these kids, they tackle big concepts, and they have great insights and ideas. And
they had fun.
And we had fun. We played a lot of games. The last day we did a mock constitutional
I know,
convention with the kids,
I know.
which, you know, I was like, oh, I wonder how this is going to work, because we didn't do that in St. Albans.
I know.
We did that. We tried that for the first time in
It's getting
Rutland.
better.
And it's getting better. And these kids, they each played a person who, you know, we gave them the basic character sheet, and they had to fill out a questionnaire, so they learned what that person's positions were
From the
when it came
Constitutional
from, you know,
Convention.
from big states versus little states, and
Representation.
Yeah, how they wanted to represent. And these kids, they were getting up there and they were putting on the accents from, you know, if they were from a southern state, they were doing the southern accents. If they were doing from Massachusetts,
Role playing.
and they had so much fun with it, and they learned so much, and
Did you give them
it's a real
homework?
joy. I didn't give them homework that they had to do, but I sent them home with stuff that if they were interested to you know, play around with when they got home, you know, worksheets and coloring maps and stuff like that. And most of them did. Most of them actually came back in. Yeah, I did.
I can't thank you enough for doing that. When I wanted to do this for several years, and when I mentioned it to Lenore, she and I and Carol Frenier met, and they liked the idea, and so I'm just so grateful to you for taking that on and making it happen. And I'm going to be working hard shortly, as soon as the holidays are over. I've been making contacts. So folks, if you have a 7th or 8th grader, that's the basic age group.
Yes, I think 6 to 8 is what we've done.
7th, and 8th grades, you might like to have become educated about the founding of our country. It's critically important, and it's fun for them to learn in a nice format. So you can contact me if you have an interest in that for your child. Okay, so the state of Vermont.
The state of Vermont.
What are you expecting? We have 40 minutes or 20 minutes or so left.
Well, I think
Wish it was
Representative Gamache hit the nail on the head. She says it's going to be hot and heavy, and I think it is. I think it's also going to be a lot of deja vu all over again, because last year Governor Scott vetoed a number of bills. I think it was 13 bills, including the budget a couple of times. He vetoed the $15 minimum wage. He vetoed the paid family leave bill. He threatened to veto, they never brought it up for a vote, but he threatened to veto the carbon tax. But as a result of the last election, the Democrats and the progressives did pick up enough seats that they have a supermajority. They can override the governor's veto at this point.
Yep.
So I think that they're going to bring back all of those bills and see if they can if they can override or bluff the governor into compromising and signing these things. So
it's scary. It's really scary. It's more about government control. The carbon tax, look what happened in France.
Oh my goodness. I mean, they're rioting in the streets over the carbon tax in France. And when they say, well, it's also about other things. Yeah, well, the other things that they said they're rioting about is what Republicans in Vermont have been saying for years, which is affordability.
Absolutely.
What the French protesters are saying is, yeah, the carbon tax was the straw that broke the camel's back, but it's just the inability to afford living here because the taxes are so high. And we're seeing that dynamic more and more in Vermont, where you've got, you know, some of the highest taxes in the country. And I recently wrote a blog post on this, but New Hampshire's attracting a lot of young people these days. I think a big part of it is because they don't have a sales tax and they don't have an income tax. I don't want to downplay the fact that they're, you know, a suburb of Boston in the southern part of New Hampshire, so they've got access to that major metropolitan area and all the jobs. That's a big deal.
A draw for the young people, you mean?
Well, it's not so much a draw for the young people. It's that I think the young people are probably coming from the Boston area and moving out to someplace that they can afford, but still have access to that area. So that's important. And there's a lot of jobs there. They've got a lot. It's a biotech hub. There's a lot of creative people. There's a finance center. So if you're in high-paying jobs, you can commute an hour and 10 minutes from New Hampshire. But there's also a lot of people who can telecommute. I don't particularly like the program that has been put forward where we're going to pay people $10,000 a year to come telecommute. I think that's foolish, but I think that the basic idea is right. Those are the people that we should be trying to attract here, but not with a bribe, because we have a better product.
Exactly, a better state to live in.
But to make the better state, I think if you're earning a high income as an attorney or an architect or a creative person who designs websites or whatnot, and you have a firm of 3 or 4 people. I know somebody who moved here about the same time I moved here 20 years ago who had a publishing company in Texas. And he said, that looks like a great place to live. I want to live in a ski town. And he moved his company up here. And a couple of the people who moved with him came here. That's kind of what we need to be going for. Not getting big companies, but little businesses. And the reason that there's been one time in our history, Linda, Governor Scott said he wanted to have 700,000 people living in the state by the end of a decade. So that means 75,000 people have to move in here in the next 10 years. Or he's been in office for 2, so 8 years. And nobody came the first 2 years, so they're still there.
I hate to interrupt you, but we have another caller.
Oh, good.
Caller, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind, permitting process in the state of Vermont. It's too expensive, and companies are not going to come here. Just in St. Albans town, we're averaging about 30 residential houses a year, and our tax base is going to go up because we don't have any factories coming in. We have an industrial park in St. Albans town that the new section is completely set to go. The water, the sewer, the electricity is there, and no customers coming in. Ben and Jerry's paid over $400,000 for their permits to build that $30 million addition.
And that
is crazy.
That was paid to the state?
Yeah. The permitting process through Act 250, fire permits and all that stuff. I talked to Tim Smith, so it's more than that, but I feel comfortable saying, 300,000, but it was more than that. That building you're sitting in was $21,000 in permits, which is crazy in my opinion. The permitting process should be there, but the cost shouldn't be affiliated, where you could put more money into your billing or hire more employees. And that's where it's sad that Vermont is losing people. I was down to Morris Service Center, and I was talking to him about a month ago. And he's had 3 people going in there and saying that they're moving out of Vermont this year. And that thing about giving $10,000 to people to come into Vermont and work here, they ought to give us $10,000 just to stay here because the amount of money that they're losing from people leaving, it's crazy.
True enough, and believe me, every day I'm hearing from people who are, contemplating selling their homes and getting the heck out of here.
But the permitting process is a self-inflicted wound. I mean, the legislators control, they created this problem, they can make it go away.
I agree with you.
And they should. I hope they do.
So start calling them up, David, and get a whole crew of people who feel like you do and have them call the legislators and let them know.
Now, Act 250 is going to be, I think, that's going to be one of the big issues this time because they're reviewing it. I think Act 250 has been on the books for 50 years. This is an anniversary, and they want to take a look at it. And from what I understand, the person on our team who knows this better than anybody is Bill Sayre, who hosts the radio show. He's saying what he thinks that they're going to do is you're going to have to prove with any building that you do or any project that you put in place, you're going to have to prove that it's carbon neutral, which is going to be extremely expensive and extremely difficult to prove. And
That's pathetic. Look, your home, you should be able, as long as you're not polluting the property, or somebody else's property, the government should not be telling you what kind of appliance to put in your kitchen.
Well, how much it's going to cost you for the carbon tax?
Yeah. Well, the carbon tax, that's another one that's going to be on the agenda. As I said, the governor vetoed that in the last session, or threatened to veto it He actually, I think, won his original race in big part because he said he would veto a carbon tax if it came to fruition. But a lot of the special interest groups that donated a lot of money to the people who got elected, a carbon tax is their priority. So who are the representatives, these new representatives, going to represent when they go in there? The people who gave them a lot of money and sent mailings into their districts on their behalf, or their constituents who are adamantly opposed to this tax?
When I was running for office, I said anybody who votes for that carbon tax, whether they're elected or whether they're down there, they automatically should resign, because the only people that are going to be left in Vermont are the rich people and the people on social services, because the middle income and their senior citizens are going to sell their houses and move into senior housing. And guys like me, I'm looking at possibility of leaving the state of Vermont in September or October.
Where are we going?
I got to make sure the state of Vermont doesn't get any more taxes from me, because I think it's out of control. If we don't do something now, there's going to be a lot more people leaving Vermont. Thank you very much. I'll hang up.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dave. I hope people are listening and will reach out when the vote comes up or prior to the vote, and let the legislators know.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
You too. We got about 9 more minutes.
Yeah, no. These are problems that the legislature has to undertake to fix, and I just don't think that they have the makeup psychologically to even approach these things.
When you have 3/4 approximately, of the Senate that are Democrats, socialists, whatever, progressives, and want these things, most of them, I would say, do. And then in the House, you have, again, 3/4 of the membership are Democrats or progressives, whatever, socialists, I don't know. But somehow they want government control, and whether it's because their pockets are lined by environmentalists or whatever, I don't know. But their primary duty, responsibility is to the people at large.
Yeah, it should be. But again, when you have that collectivist mindset, it's not about consent, it's about force. And these folks don't like the consensual choices that citizens make when left to their own devices. So they want to force people to do things the way they would do it. And it's not a moral way to have a government.
No. You're an individual. I'm an individual. I want to think for myself, spend my money where I think it's wise to spend it, and I don't want the government telling me, I'm worried about property rights.
That's another big part of the Act 250 that's coming up, is that the way they're going to tell people you can't cut trees in certain ways. You're not going to be able to develop the property the way that you want to develop it. You're going to develop the way we want.
So who owns the property?
Oh, that's a good question. If the government regulates it to the point where they control it, who really owns it?
Exactly.
The government owns it.
So then
and you don't.
Yeah.
They've taken the regulatory through regulation all the value of your property in some of these cases.
Yeah,
and they don't compensate you for it because on paper you're still the owner, but they've just regulated it to the point where they control it.
Yeah.
If I tell you how you have to spend all the money in your wallet, it's really my money, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not yours anymore.
Absolutely. There's no freedom of choice. And that's all of these issues that we're talking about are about limiting individual choice and empowerment. And there's so much.
I know, but I want to go back to the word consent because I think it's an important word. It's about taking away your right to consent to how you live your life.
Well, with all of the animosity and divisiveness that's going on in this country, much of it, I believe, is being instigated to stir things up. All these riots and people wearing orange vests and whatever. I think it's really sinful that people are that much against what this country was founded to be, that they are they find people, pay them perhaps to go out and destroy other people's property and make a scene and so forth. But if you have people on this side and you have people on this side, and then in the middle you have the laws, you have the rights of the individuals, you have the laws about in the Constitution about how things are to be in this country, the fundamentals. If you take these people and they all respect and abide by the Constitution, the founding law of the land, the supreme law of the land, then there shouldn't be the dissension. Maybe a little bit about how, okay, we agree we need to do this, but not how we're going to do it. We have to work through something. But when there's such divisiveness and nobody's willing to change or work together, it's destructive to the country.
Oh, I don't disagree with you.
And to the people.
It is, but when we're basically being asked to fight over who controls the government, because whoever controls the government is going to control our lives. That's a dynamic that needs to be broken. We shouldn't.
Boy, I guess.
We shouldn't care. Well, we should care, but I mean, it shouldn't be so important who wins an election to everything, every aspect of our lives. And the more and more government takes, the more and more government controls, the more and more impassioned we're going to get over the elections, because so much is at stake. So much should not be at stake in who wins an election. It's to be, go up forth and make treaties and figure out, defend our borders, and you have a judicial system, a federal judicial system that you put in. But otherwise, stay out of our lives.
Exactly.
And if they stayed out of our lives, we wouldn't care so much who won these elections. We wouldn't spend so much money on picking who wins or not.
I told the students when I spoke to them, one of the things I said was, the more that government does for you, the less control you have over your own life.
If you want to get money out of politics, take power out of politics.
Yep. Well, money speaks, doesn't it?
It does.
And my dad said that when I was a young girl. Linda, money speaks. And it's not necessarily a good thing. So anything else here? We're losing young people in Vermont.
We are, and we need to get them back.
We have a $4.5 billion unfunded liability.
Yeah, for our pensions in the state, so that's going to be a big issue.
Why are we responsible for those? Nobody paid for my retirement.
Well, these are for public employees.
So, we have another caller. Caller, welcome to the program. We're really short on time, so let us...
I know, Linda.
Yes?
I just wanted to make an additional comment.
Quickly.
I think that everybody needs to be involved in what's going on in the State House. And if for people who have not yet gone down to the State House and sat through a session just to observe, they should do this when they have the opportunity. The other thing is, it's up to each and every one of us to be active. If you have an issue that it really concerns you, it is not difficult to find out what committee is handling that particular issue and when it's going to be on the agenda. And what most people don't know is that anyone can come to the State House and attend any committee meeting that they choose, because it is the people's house on a state level. And I urge everybody to really get involved, because that is the only way you're going to see change here in Vermont.
Absolutely. Well said, my friend. Vigilance and involvement.
Absolutely. Nonviolent involvement.
Respectful. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good night.
Good night.
So, Linda, we didn't get to touch on everything. I know we're
You'll
done.
have to come back.
I'll have to come back another time. But in the meantime, if folks want to learn more about the Ethan Allen Institute and these issues, again, it's ethanallen.org, www.ethanallen.org on the internet, and we hope you'll look in and you'll sign up for our emails. You get a monthly newsletter, electronically, if you become a donor to the Ethan Allen Institute, we have a print newsletter that we send out quarterly as well.
Yes.
Lots of good information that we can put in your hands, and happy to talk to you and answer your questions anytime.
Great, Rob. And it's well worth supporting this particular organization, folks. It's in your best interest. So send them a donation. Get online and send them a donation. Rob, thank you so much for coming on. We're all done.
Thank you, Linda.
And folks, I'll see you again next week. Have a good week, and I hope you're getting ready for the big Christmas holiday. Good night.